everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is my second episode of the Ultimate Lineup. Glad you're watching. Today I have a really special guest. I think you all know him and I think you all love him. So without further ado, let me bring him on. Hey Chris, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for the intro. I don't know if they all love me, especially like if Greg of Midlife Cards or Don Field of Dreams watches this thing. So
That's great. So I appreciate you coming on. Ultimate Lineup, like we've chatted about, right, is you show a card from a player in each position and then some pictures. And then after that, we'll talk about what the ultimate lineup is for the batting order.
When I saw you do this with Orlando, I would just want to let somebody know that is how I played with my cards when I was a kid. When I tell people today that, hey, my cards aren't in the best shape because I used to play with them. Well, what I would do back in the day is, I'm 7 to 10 years old. I would keep my cards sorted in rubber bands along with teams. So I kept all my Cincinnati Reds cards together, all my Kansas City cards, Yankees cards were with each other. And then what I would do as my collection grew, I would take my all-time Kansas City team and play it against my all-time Reds, or take the Dodgers and play it against somebody. And I got to where I had a tournament with my collection. So I would get them out, pick the starter. I remember back when I first started collecting, I struggled with having some A's cards. So, I'd get somebody by the name. One of the guys I remember having was Jim Holt, and that was his name. And I was trying to convince myself in this tournament that I had that he was a better hitter than like somebody like Mike Schmidt, because oh gosh, I needed him to win so the Reds wouldn't have to play the Phillies in this tournament. But that's how I used to play with my cards. I'd sort them by teams, and then I would take an all-time team and go play against a neighbor with he would have his all-time team. And I think it helped me learn a lot about the older players that way.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that I could help you be a little nostalgic.
There you go. No, I'm excited. This is all right.
Nice. Awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look. We could start with wherever you want to start, catcher, and maybe go around the bases, and then we'll hit the outfield.
Oh, sounds good.
Perfect.
And while I do this, I might have to lay these out so I'll know what I think my batting order is going to be, because I don't have anything written down.
Sure.
And then I just randomly chose, I kind of not just rookie cards of these players. I think I have most of their rookies, but I wanted to show some cards I hadn't got out in a while. And so I enjoy sharing these cards. So
that's great.
So let's start out with a catcher. And this is great for me to start out with because he is my catcher, my favorite catcher, the guy that I collected growing up. But I don't have any apprehension at all about putting him on the all-time team. And that is Johnny Bench. And I don't care what standards a person uses. He's, whether it's WAR, whether it's eye test, whatever, to me, Johnny Bench is the greatest catcher that ever played. And then I think the runner-up would be Yogi Berra.
I agree with you on both of those, actually. That's a beautiful card. So for those listening, Chris just showed a 1969 Topps Johnny Bench. It's his Gold Cup card. It's the one that Hugo made famous a few weeks ago with the Village Inn advertisement in the background.
Where you used to get pancakes, right?
Yes, my favorite. That's where I used to go in college when we didn't have any money. We'd go to Village Inn, we get pancakes and Sprite, and we'd leave, and I think our bill would be like $4.
Nice. So, but I enjoy that 69 card. It looks really good. So
that's a beautiful card. I think that's his best. That's his best looking one. I think his second best is the 76 Topps, where he's standing there, he looks pissed, and it's got the dust around him.
76 is my favorite card, but I show every time somebody has me on or something to show my favorite cards. that 76 is my favorite card in my whole collection. It
Oh,
is.
nice.
So
Nice.
you want me to move on to first base?
Sure.
And I believe this one's pretty cut and dry too. I didn't when I chose my all-time team with my cards. There wasn't anybody I was missing that I couldn't say, hey, I don't have that card, so I'm going to show you who I think's the second best. But I believe the best first baseman to ever play is in this 1934 Gowdy of Lou Gehrig.
Beautiful card.
And it can be debated who's the best first baseman, but universally, I think if you put a vote to vintage baseball card collectors and maybe even sports writers and stuff, Lou Gehrig would come out on top as the greatest first baseman of all time.
I agree. I agree. Absolutely.
So, yeah. So,
and that's an iconic card too. That's a beautiful card. It's a great image. For those listening, it's the 34 Gowdy. It's the green background where Gehrig is swinging. It's an absolutely beautiful card.
Yeah, very nice. And I like the 33 Gowdy as well when he's at bat. But again, I don't get to show this card a lot, so I got it out and I get to show it now. Now, second base is the one that I kind of argued in my mind about because I grew up a Cincinnati Reds fan, and when I heard and read Bill James's book that said, Joe Morgan might be the greatest second baseman of all time, it just kind of cemented my feet into to any argument saying, okay, I think Joe Morgan is the greatest second baseman. But when I started comparing stuff, and you can get with Baseball Reference now, you can compare anything, and I looked at who I think is one of the top 5 greatest right-handed hitters of all time, and that is Rogers Hornsby. And I'm showing a 1922 E121 American Caramel card.
Oh, beautiful!
And it's black and white for those of you that aren't watching this.
That's a great looking card. It's a great image of him.
And he just, I think he's a little bit underrated as in this hobby. And the reason I say that, the reason I think that is the Cardinals did not embrace him as one of theirs for the longest time. He left when he left St. Louis, even though he spent the major part of his career there. They were glad to see him go, and they didn't retire his number until maybe 10 years ago. Time gets past me now, but you would think a great like that. And, St. Louis has that, has a pretty good history about them, but they didn't give him much love. And his cards aren't that hard to get. Now there's a few of them like that caramel card, and, it's kind of tough, but, even the 33 Gowdy has come down in price.
Oh yeah.
Both of them, so anyway.
I agree. And it's interesting to me because of the fact that he was such a good hitter. And I think, he's underrated. And there's a lot of people that I talk to that aren't really familiar with him. I mean, he hit over 400 3 times, including 428, right? He won the Triple Crown twice. He was a power hitter before power hitters were really a big thing, right? He played in he played around the same time Babe Ruth did, right? He played in the teens through the early 30s or something like that, right? So,
right.
So
he won, he won he played in World Series, and, and at the time that he played, he got a lot of press. I mean, baseball loved him. I just think that he just didn't have a team that loved him there after he retired he coached and, he just, I don't know. I don't know why, but yeah, there's a lot of people that need to take it if they're going to be vintage collectors and talk about, all-time greats. He's a great one to learn about.
100% agree.
Yeah. So the next one, so I struggled against with Hornsby and Morgan, and I think if I would have chose Morgan, there'd have been some people that said, no, Hornsby's better. But they wouldn't have thrown me under the bus and drove over me 2 or 3 different times. They'd have said, that's your opinion. The shortstop spot is a little bit heated, I think, because there's one that people say is that say he's the all-time best, hands down, and that's Honus Wagner. But when it comes to number 2, there's people that will tell you that Cal Ripken's better, and there's people that tell you that Jeter's better, Alex Rodriguez or Robin Yount. I mean, it's just all over the place. And but I went ahead and chose Honus Wagner. And the card that again, during his time, he was the greatest baseball player.
Yep.
He was the greatest baseball player to play. And if you're ever considered the greatest to ever play, and I know we evolve, it's hard to lose that. It's hard to lose that crown. It takes people to be a lot better than the greatest to ever be called the greatest. And when he went in the Hall of Fame, I believe people thought he was the greatest player to play the game.
Absolutely.
And what I'm going to show is a 1961 Golden Press Honus Wagner. Now, I love these cards, and I don't show them very often.
It's a beautiful image.
And yeah, it would be a great painting hanging up in somebody's man cave.
I agree.
But he carried a heavy bat. He was strong. He wasn't afraid of anybody. And I just think he still deserves the honors of being the greatest. And at shortstop. Now I don't know if you told me to take you can't use Honus Wagner. I don't know who I would have taken, because I've never really thought that Ozzie Smith was the greatest shortstop.
I agree.
I really, this is going to make some people mad, but I really didn't think that when I was growing up, I didn't think that he was the best defensive shortstop. Man, it's fun to watch, and he's the human highlight reel, but so was Dominique Wilkins in basketball, and I never thought Dominique Wilkins was the greatest player. And I used to always think, I heard a player, I personally, heard somebody talk, and they weren't really putting him down so much, even though it sounds like it. But I had heard that Dave Concepcion could get to baseball standing up, that Ozzie had to dive for. And, so and that kind of permeated in my mind a little bit. But again, I don't know. I don't know who I would have taken if I couldn't have taken Honus Wagner. Who would you have taken?
If I couldn't take, if I was doing my list, I would have Honus Wagner shortstop as well.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I love Jeter, but I heard somebody make a comment and it made me laugh. When Jeter was playing on the Yankees. Oh, that was you. That's right. The best shortstop on the team was playing third base.
Yeah, that was me. And
love it.
And that was hard for me to say, because I like Alex Rodriguez like I like a cold sore,
Right, yeah. He's not the most likable guy. Actually, I'm impressed with how he's kind of turning around his persona now that he's retired. But I agree, as a pure player, A-Rod definitely better than Jeter, but Jeter is just much more loved, and
and there's
bigger fan base.
There's some great shortstop, like I think there's some great shortstops not in the Hall of Fame. That like Pee Wee Reese and Phil Rizzuto. Mm-hmm. To me, when I was growing up, I thought Larry Bowa was every bit as good as them. And if he played during their time, he would probably be a Hall of Famer, because that's how a shortstop was supposed to play back then. Mm-hmm. And Cal Ripken kind of changed that, and with and Barry Larkin and all that. So shortstop still got a long way to go to get somebody better than Honus Wagner.
I 100% agree.
Okay, I better move on before I take too much of your time. But third base, you're talking about something that was tough for me to do, argue. because
100%.
I mean, I'm a George Brett fan, and I think that if I made George Brett part of this team, they would be every bit as good just because, just because. But I couldn't. I mean, I can't tell you. I can't give you a reason to dislike Mike Schmidt.
Hmm.
Um, even when I thought George Brett was the best player in the American League, and he was there, I believe he was there for a couple of years. He never was as good as Mike Schmidt to me, and I think George Brett would even tell you that.
Hmm.
And the card that I chose is the 1976 Mike Schmidt, and he's got a lot of nice cards.
Yeah,
And, I really like this. I
that's a
really
great
like,
image.
yeah. And I put George Brett up against him on the Baseball Reference, and you can do that as well. And I mean, he owns just as many of of the marks that Mike Schmidt owns, but the ones that Mike Schmidt are better than George Brett. He's a lot better than George Brett, like the 9 Golden Gloves, or the home runs. George Brett had more RBI than Mike Schmidt, but he had one more RBI than Mike Schmidt.
Oh, wow.
But my choice is Mike Schmidt, and my second right now is George Brett. But if I keep learning more about Eddie Matthews, I might end up changing my mind.
Yeah, Eddie Matthews is really good. I think he was obviously overshadowed by Hank Aaron, right? But
Right,
he was great. He's a great player, right?
right.
Power hitter,
And
solid defense.
and he kind of got lost in time because when he retired, he was really high up on a lot of different things. But during that time, in the late 60s and early 70s, some of those guys that were acquiring stats just kind of surpassed him, like
Hmm.
Mays and Aaron and Frank Robinson, and some of those guys just kind of went by him,
Hmm.
a lot of those stats. But anyway, you can't go wrong choosing Mike Schmidt as the greatest third baseman of all time.
I agree.
And I know Ray from Philly is going to watch that, and he's going to go, "Yes, I heard him say that Mike Schmidt's better than George Brett." But anyway, so left field to me, uh, there's a lot of them you could have put out there, and but I chose who I think was the greatest hitter of all time, and he played the Green Monster as good as anybody. And what I'm going to show you now is the 1941 Ted Williams.
Beautiful card. Great choice too for left field. He's got the 41 Ted Williams. That's the one for people listening in. It's the red background. It's got a great image of Ted smiling. It's a beautiful card. Super iconic one.
And what to me, what makes it iconic is the shadow that they have behind there.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, but there's a lot of you can have people do their 9 favorite outfielders. 3 left fielders, pick 3 center fielders. But since you got to pick just one,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I will argue with just about anybody about not putting anybody out there. But I did think about this since I've played this game before. I thought about putting Ricky Henderson out there.
Mm-hmm.
That way, when I did the batting order, no matter whose team, if they didn't have Ricky Henderson leading off, I could say I have the best leadoff hitter, on my team. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought about Ricky, but I have him in my top 5 left fielders of all time. But I just couldn't put him. I just couldn't put him on there. So
I'm with you on that. So Ricky's my brother's favorite player. So when he
okay.
watches this, he'll give me a hard time. But I agree with you. I would go with Ted Williams in left field too.
Yeah. And I tell you, Ricky is one that I'm appreciating more and more. Even though I played baseball, from little league all the way up in college, and then I went on to play I caught fast pitch softball back in the day. And even though I was cocky as could be and loud and would talk trash, when I could, it's hard for me to pick out people that aren't humble as my favorite or my best player, even though I was far from being too humble, but Ricky, I didn't care for Ricky, but I'm starting to appreciate him more and more.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm with you. From a personality perspective, I think he hurt himself with by the way he portrayed himself. And then when I did a video about him for my top 50 countdown, I was did a lot of research on him, and he talked a lot about how he regrets saying I'm the greatest of all time. He didn't mean it that way. He meant it as his idol was Muhammad Ali, so he's kind of like quoting Muhammad Ali, and he's like,
Right.
yeah, it came out the wrong way. And but that's the thing when you look at when you look at his stats, he a lot the guys better than him, or probably most of them are more humble than him. I think anybody's more humble than him, but
Right. Right.
he with the stats he had, you know his persona kind of worked a little bit. I think I didn't like it a ton, but I could see it. Like if he was worse, it would just be kind of silly.
Right.
But then you look at
And,
some of the
and
stolen base.
I don't think he would have stayed in the league very long if he wasn't um, good. I mean, that's
Yeah.
anybody can say that, but if he was just an average player, he would have floated around because he wasn't he didn't get close with any teammates at all.
Right.
If he wasn't playing that day, he was playing cards in the clubhouse.
Mm.
He was, uh, that kind of stuff. But anyway, he he's one of those characters that's great to have in baseball.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about Ricky Henderson for a long time.
Absolutely.
So center field, I wanted to really try to push to get Ty Cobb in my lineup and show some Ty Cobb cards, but I couldn't because the greatest center fielder of all time might be the greatest player of all time, and that's Willie Mays. And I'm showing a 1956 Topps Willie Mays baseball card.
That beautiful card. And I agree with you. He's best center fielder of all time, possibly one of the best players of all time. Not possibly, definitely one of the best players of the time, possibly the best.
Right. And see, Willie is not has never been a humble person either. But he had fun when he played. He
Mm.
laughed, joked, and I don't know of watching anybody that loved to play more than him.
Hmm.
So and so to me, that's just a great team. Now, a guy that I think that I chose for right field is he started back getting more and more credit as he was out of baseball, but there's not too much of a gap between this guy and the greatest center fielder of all time. And to me, it's the greatest right-handed hitter of all time, and that's Hank Aaron. I believe Hank Aaron was a better hitter than Willie Mays.
I agree with that.
And they were interviewing Johnny Bench, Hank Aaron, Sandy Koufax, and Willie Mays when they got elected as the greatest four living baseball players. And during that interview, if you listen close enough, you can hear Hank Aaron when Willie was talking. You could hear Hank Aaron whispering to Johnny Bench, "He wasn't as good a hitter as me," and I really believe that Hank Aaron thought that. And I also he had all right to, you know.
Mhm.
So to me that I could have put, there's a lot of great right fielders too, but Hank Aaron could run. He had so much power and so strong. He had a good arm. He's a good athlete. Uh,
Mhm.
so I could have put Babe Ruth out there, but baseball created a spot for Babe Ruth when they created the DH.
Mhm.
So I thought about putting Ted Williams as a DH and picking somebody else up in left field, but if that position was made for him,
Oh
and
yeah.
what I'm showing to you here is a 1920 W519 uh, numbered Babe Ruth. It's a Type 1, and it's numbered
Nice.
to 5 on here.
Nice. So we could call that his Yankees rookie card.
Oh, no, it can't be. There's maybe, but there's so much stuff out there. I don't know what would be called as rookie. Um, but every if you looked at anybody I chose here, they all could be DH.
Yeah.
They would be, and and I wish the National League would have picked up the DH. Johnny Bench would have stayed. And the reason the DH became into effect in like '74, the argument was you're going to be able to see more and more your favorite players. You see them play longer, and
Mhm.
that's kind of that sounded great. Now that's changed, but you want me to do pitchers now before I do the lineup?
Sure.
Well, so this, I had to put more thought into this than any other thing. Matter of fact, I'll show you this. I'm going to show you my reliever first, but
Okay.
I did something a little bit different. There's the greatest closer of all time is Mariano Rivera. And I'm showing his rookie card where he looks like he's getting ready to go surfing or something. I don't know.
I was gonna say best outfit in a rookie card ever.
Yeah.
And is
I think he's trying to get out in one of those porta potties. That's what I think he's knocking on the door to get in one of those porta potties. But
exactly.
but anyway, he's the greatest closer, no doubt about it. But the reliever role is different. There's a closer role now,
Mhm.
and the reliever role, to me, the greatest reliever of all time, and it's gone. It's to me, I believe it started with Raleigh Finger, then it went to Goose Gossage, but I think the greatest reliever of all time is Dennis Eckersley, and I'm showing his rookie card, 1976 rookie, and I could have, I got out the Goose Gossage card. Goose gave up some home runs. Dennis Eckersley gave up a famous home run too.
Mhm.
But I think most people that watch baseball through that era would either say Raleigh Fingers, Goose Gossage, or Dennis Eckersley.
I would agree with that.
And I was a Kansas City Royal fan, of course, and Dan Quisenberry was an incredible reliever.
Mhm.
And there was a stretch that he was the greatest reliever in the game, but he didn't carry it out quite long enough, I don't think. And
Mhm.
so that part was okay. It was kind of cut and dry for me. But the starting pitchers, the left-handed starting pitcher, I can't believe I chose him. I just can't believe I did. And I thought about taking Lefty Grove. I really thought hard about taking Warren Spahn, and I got Steve Carlton out to put in this lineup because I would think that Steve Carlton was the greatest left-handed pitcher I ever saw, except I chose Randy Johnson as my left-handed pitcher. Um, I got friends that would say, "Well, how about Sandy Koufax? If you choose Sandy Koufax, the left arm of God." Well, I just, I this guy, one of the best abilities is availability,
Mhm.
and Sandy Koufax didn't have a very long career, and Randy Johnson did, and
Mhm.
so I chose him. Now, if you took Sandy Koufax in his prime, okay, and that prime was 6 years.
Right.
Randy Johnson's prime was a lot longer. Just
Oh yeah. I mean, he had his best seasons when he was like in his late 30s.
he learned how to pitch. He learned how to throw strikes, and I just thought Steve Carlton had the greatest slider in the world, but Randy Johnson's slider was better. You know,
Mhm.
he threw sliders that right-handed batters would swing at and get hit by the pitch. On the back of the leg. It was so good.
Uh-huh.
So so anyway, I'm up to the right-handed starting pitcher. And I could have chose Walter Johnson. I got a lot of Walter Johnson stuff on the wall.
Nice.
And I would never bring myself to choosing Roger Clemens. just because my whole debate on steroids and that kind of stuff. And that's why I didn't choose Barry Bonds on any of that. And there might be some people screaming at the channel saying, you got to, nobody, Bonds was the greatest player of all time. And, those words aren't going to come out of my mouth. And so I chose who was the Roger Clemens in his day. And I know you're a big Nolan Ryan fan. And when you compare this guy to Nolan Ryan, it just Nolan Ryan was great, but this guy was better until maybe the age of 44 or 42 or 41, and that is Tom Seaver.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, he was the greatest right-hand pitcher of all time. He won a few big games, but nothing, the World Series he owned, that kind of stuff. But he was just consistent and threw hard and great. And I don't know, his best pitcher, I believe he's the best pitcher I ever saw.
Nice.
And not the most dynamic, but he had a fastball that people thought rose because his knee after he pushed off the mound would be right on the ground, and he could get away with high fastballs that people couldn't get. To me, he was a cross between Roger Clemens and Greg Maddux because he had super control and he had a tenacity on the mound that he'd go after just about anybody. And I could have chose Bob Gibson. I could have chose anybody, but my choice was Tom Seaver.
Nice. Yeah, Seaver is fantastic. I actually, when I did my countdown, a lot of people commented on Seaver because I ranked him higher than Nolan Ryan, and a bunch of people asked me why I would do that, and I said, "Look, you guys know how much I love Nolan Ryan. Seaver's a better pitcher."
Right, and Nolan Ryan had more moments. More spectacular moments, but a lot of those were, look what he's doing at the age of 40.
Right.
Look what he's doing. Look what he is doing at the age of 42. Those no hitters, incredible, and a ton of one hitters. But Seaver never did try to strike everybody out. And Nolan, I don't know of the game that he didn't try to strike everybody out.
Yeah.
There's nobody in baseball, maybe Cy Young, that pitched more pitches than Nolan Ryan because he tried to strike everybody out. He was always around the plate, and a lot of times that hurt him. A lot of times that hurt him. So I guess you want me to try to make a lineup out of this.
Yes. So what do you think? Ultimate lineup.
Okay, give me just a second here.
Sure.
Wow, this is funny. Wow, you talking? So what coaches want to do is they want to stretch the lineup in baseball, and they want to lengthen the lineup so a pitcher has to work these days because they will like that lineup to have a better hitter than a Gold Glover maybe out in superposition.
Right.
Well, if I'm looking at this right, I got $30 Gold Gloves in this, so it's not a bad defensive team.
Solid.
Matter of fact, they're pretty good up the middle, but but just wait. This is going to be funny. So leading off on my team, and I will put it up. When I'm done with this, I'm going to look up your last channel with Orlando and see how my team would have done against Orlando's team.
Okay.
But my leadoff hitter is Honus Wagner.
Okay.
He didn't lead off much when he was during his playing days. But, he wasn't slow of foot. He was strong, great on base percentage, great batting average. It's good person to have for leading off. Now, I almost put Willie Mays there because Willie Mays actually led off some stuff. He led off a bunch of All-Star games because they didn't really know where to put him. Batting second in this lineup is the greatest hitter of all time, and that's Ted Williams.
Mm-hmm.
So batting third, and the reason his number is number 3 is because that's how they put the uniforms numbers on. Babe Ruth was number 3, and he's going to be number 3 in my lineup.
Nice.
And so I think that's a pretty good 3-hitter. Now, number 4, why break up the duo? The guy that batted 4th behind Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig. So
there you go.
You're talking a great hitter, and I would tell this team not to steal a single base.
Yeah,
just go station to station.
Yep.
And then batting 5th in this lineup, I got Hank Aaron.
That's awesome.
So
basically, first inning, after no outs, 5 guys up, the pitcher is incredibly stressed out already.
Yeah.
So that's good.
So I think what a person would have to do to beat this team is get Carl Hubble to come pitch for him, because that All-Star game he struck out like 6 Hall of Famers in a row.
Right.
So that's what you'd have to have. Now, batting number 6 in this line is kind of crazy, but it's Willie Mays. Now, could you foresee a team that would ever put Willie Mays number 6 in their lineup? So
yeah, no, but that's the thing. When you're doing this ultimate lineup, it's tough because you look at these guys and there's obviously no team that was nearly like this. So you do have to move stuff. Because when I did one for myself just to kind of think about the concept of the series, and that's where I was like my first 5-6 batters. Like, my 6, I was like, who would I put 6? Like 1 through 5, easy. 6 through 9 is tougher because you're like, 9 for me was kind of straightforward. But yeah, 6, 7, 8. It's like I'm looking at these. I'm like, these guys would be batting 4th on any other team.
Right now, I do have a group here that struck out. I mean, there's plenty of strikeouts here,
mm-hmm.
but I don't know if any pitcher wants to see Willie Mays batting 6th. And then how about this? Mike Schmidt batting 7th.
There you go.
And what a great hitter. I don't think Mike Schmidt ever batted 7th in his life.
No.
Maybe a church softball team 10 years after he quit playing, maybe. So batting 8th, this is going to be controversial because it's me, but I coached baseball a little bit in high school, and I went to a coaching clinic, and a guy told me that when you make your high school lineup, you put your best leadoff hitter at leadoff, and then you put your second best leadoff hitter number 9, so you don't crowd the bases, right? Well, I also did this. I didn't want to put this guy at number 9 because he's my favorite player, and I didn't want to slap in the face, but he is probably the slowest guy on this team, and that's Johnny Bench. So I got Johnny Bench batting number 8th in the lineup.
Nice.
So that leaves the greatest number 9 hitter of all time.
I was going to say, this is, yeah.
So, I probably should have put Johnny Bench there as far as being, but listen, Johnny Bench was great in his, he was great as well. But number 9 in my batting order is Rogers Hornsby. And, if you're going to face a team that has Roger Hornsby batting 9th,
right,
you're going to go through some pitching.
I was going to say that he has the second highest batting average of all time.
Right.
Definitely would make sense to have him bat 9th just because it just scares the pitchers. Like, I don't know what to do.
Well, to me, he's the second best leadoff hitter of this bunch.
Yeah.
I could have put Willie Mays there, but I just, again, saying Willie Mays, you're batting 9th is not why he's alive anyway. He'll come and
right.
Exactly. Maybe someday I'll do this again and I'll say Willie Mays is going to be batting 9th in this order.
And I appreciate you saying that, implying that Willie Mays will possibly watch my channel.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris. That was super fun. I loved your lineup. I will tell you this: when I made my lineup, just to kind of think through it, it was the player, at least the guys playing in the field, had a very, very similar setup as you. So that being said, I think you had the correct ultimate lineup.
Well, listen, I'm going to challenge you to do something.
Okay.
I want you to pretend like you were me when I was 10 years old, and I want you to get into your collection, and I want you to choose a lineup of your favorite team and give yourself a point for the player itself, for their defensive ability. So, for instance, if you have Johnny Bench catching and you have Carlton Fisk catching on the other team, you give Johnny Bench a point.
Okay.
Give that team a point. Then when you make out the lineup, try not to even think about the other team. Make out a lineup and, okay, who's the best leadoff hitter? Okay, which team? And give that team a point. And all the way through. And then at the end, you can tally up the points. And that's who I picked who have the best team. And that's how I spent hours and hours doing that as a kid.
Nice. Yeah, I'll do that. That's a good idea. That'll be fun.
I just loved it, and then I got to where, I was at the time, Paul Molitor was supposed to be a great coming up to be a shortstop.
Mm-hmm.
And, every once in a while when I had the Brewers out, I would put Robin Yount somewhere else or have him as a DH so I could have Molitor in there, because I love Jim Gantner and I didn't want to put Molitor at second base, and I love Sal Bando and I didn't want to put Molitor at third. So there's all kind. I spent hours and hours doing it, and I love it, and I can't wait to see you do somebody else. I can't wait for you to choose somebody else so I can see what their lineup would be.
Absolutely, me too. Well, Chris, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. I loved your lineup. Love the cards. Always fun chatting with you. Really appreciate it. So thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. And I tell you what, if you want to have me again soon doing the same thing, but maybe with a team, I'll take you up on it because I love it. I love it. But why don't you get a bunch of guys and let everybody see their cards too and hear what they have to say. But what a great idea. And I love your channel too. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for watching.